Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and in today's video we'll be going over a quick update that's happened in patch 8.2. With the brand new raid season being out, the PvP season starting up, we'll actually get a couple small updates for PvP that a lot of you guys I think are going to be happy about, and we'll cover all this information in this video in just a moment. I first want to talk real quick about patch 8.2, and so far this patch has been absolutely amazing. A lot of people in some sense are even describing patch 8.2 as a brand new expansion, and maybe that could be a topic for another video. But we'll just have to wait and see what more there is to come, because I'm pretty sure the honeymoon period is nowhere near over, with Rise of Azara having about 2 days worth of playtests so far. Anyway, let's get into the video. There's a couple different updates, and first of all, we're gonna go over some of the various updates that have happened primarily for PvP and talk about the pocket-sized computational device trinket. Now, a lot of people found this trinket very near and dear to their hearts, so what is the recent change that Blizzard went on with the new Mechagon trinket? First of all, the yellow punch cards that actually offer you stats has been nerfed. In some sense, this trinket was outsimming some of the mythic level raid trinkets, and when that's happening, that's a no-go. So, Blizzard nerfed the yellow punch cards, but actually increased the effectiveness of red punch cards. And while some of you guys might be excited about the red beam punch card that can be gotten from the reputation vendors, that one hasn't been buffed in damage, but now scales with haste and can crit, so it can make this punch card a lot more powerful. Overall, Blizzard wanted to make this trinket a great entry trinket if you do end up getting it, but the raid trinkets are supposed to be a lot more powerful, so you do have someone to look forward to. But if you're someone who PvPs and you love the pocket-sized computation device, then you might be in luck, because that thing can now crit, that can offer some more dedicated burst. Speaking about the player versus player content, Blizzard has been doing a few changes within PvP as well as within essences. So here I want to talk about some of the changes that are coming up. First of all, if you are a feral druid, restorer druid, boomkin druid, or a rogue, and you've been trying to stealth around enemies, you probably noticed a lot of the essences, primarily the passives, taking you out of stealth. Randomly, your character would maybe try to sap an enemy, bam, you get back the energy for that sap, which I guess is kind of cool. You don't really expect it, but now you're exposed, and for whatever reason, the essence put you right outside in front of enemies out of stealth. That's a death sentence for a lot of rogues, and a lot of people were very unhappy with this bug. So Blizzard decided to change it up a little bit, so now Memory of Lucid Dreams, one of the biggest offenders, no longer breaks you out of stealth. And a lot of the other essences with passives that have to do with stealth will no longer break you out of stealth. Which I gotta say, finally, because this was ridiculous. Although I gotta say that if you're Assassination or Subtlety, you probably notice this more than other specs. I primarily play Outlaw, so for me it wasn't really that much of a bother. Most of my combat happens outside of stealth, and whenever I do need to stealth, maybe stealth and run away, or stealth and cheap shot, which takes me out of stealth immediately. But for Outlaw, it wasn't really that big of a deal. But for Assassination to curb your opener, that must have felt awful. You also have had a lot of PvE items nerfed in PvP, and Blizzard, it looks like, somewhat learned their lesson back in BOD. We'll find out in a couple seasons if any of these items are busted. But with a brand new raid, we have a lot of powerful trinkets that are gonna be doing a boatload of damage or healing, and people are gonna be using various trinkets in order to get themselves a competitive advantage. Now, for PvP, that's never been fun, because it feels like you're winning because of a trinket. So Blizzard is trying to nip them in the butt a little bit early. We have things like Addict of Faithless, absorption reduced by 60%, whether you're a healer, whether you're DPS, Blizzard doesn't care, that's going to be reduced. Bloodthirsty Urchin, healing output has been reduced by flat 50, doesn't matter if you're a healer, tank, or whatever. Ash Veil's Razor Coral only stacks to 20, Dribbling Inkpot doesn't one-shot players, and even some of the old school offenders that a lot of us that PvP hate. Like the Diamond Laced Refracting Prism, effectiveness reduced by 50% for tanks and 70% for non-tanks, so maybe we'll see this run a lot less. Same thing goes for Mirror of Entwined Fate, reduced by 30 for healers and 65 for non-healers, and by 30 for healers for Ward of Development, also 65 nerf for non-healer specializations. And we also had a brand new trait come out called Undulating Tides. As long as your health is above 50%, it allows your character to blast the enemy with a little bit of frost damage. But whenever your character drops below 50%, you gain a massive shield. Well, that shield's absorption has been reduced by 75 because obviously people were gonna try to triple stack to see if they can get some massive shield that allows them to survive some of the biggest bursts. I personally have never been against the idea of using PvE or dungeon gear within PvP, and I think part of what makes an MMO, or better yet RPG, is the gear that you use. In some cases, certain classes or specs can use certain pieces in order to make them competitive or viable, but when it was as bad as Diamond Lace or Fractal Prism basically healing or almost healing a character to what 20k HPS a second or something like that, it was incredibly insane. So I'm glad that Blizzard is trying to nip these items a little bit early before people really start getting at them, and we might see a whole other wave of nerfs at a later time. But Blizzard doesn't understand that these items are busted. We want people to use it, but they need to be balanced within PvP. So if anything, I would say it looks like they are going a little bit more heavy-handed with some of the nerfs that are going on with some of these items, which I think is a good thing. I think a lot of the people in the PvP community would agree that it's much better rather that PvP trinkets are stronger than PvE trinkets than the other way around. You guys let me know your thoughts about this change in the comments below. So those are probably the biggest changes so far, but we are only a few days into the release of the brand new raid, so most likely by the end of this week or even the next, we're gonna see maybe more class tuning as the mythic raid comes out. And that's where the game is really gonna start ramping up. So this will be very interesting to see as people get their essences and figure out how the classes and specs work, what's going to be the best, what's going to be the worst, and what might get some nerfs and what classes might get some buffs. I personally have a couple different specs in mind that I really would want for Blizzard to take a second look at when it comes to PvE. And I'm very hopeful about a few specs. I won't mention them here. I could make a whole separate video for that, which I might honestly. But there's a couple specs, enhancement, like I would want to see get some changes. Maybe some sort of buffs to bring out a spec that barely anybody really plays. There's a couple of those, and if you guys want to see a video for that, let me know in the comments below which specs should I talk about. But besides that, thank you guys so much for checking out this video. Just a quick update on everything that is happening. Let me know your thoughts about some of the changes to some of the more overpowered raid items within PvP. Hopefully this season 3 is going to be far more balanced and less PvE heavy. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see all of you in another video.